On the Fringe with Dan RadioStyle. Hope everybody out there's having themselves a great day. We've got a lot going on. Obviously, the day before the election, it's going to be crazy. And I really want to talk about a couple things. Mainly one, the election coming up, and the fact that there's going to be sort of a blackout around who can say anything, whether someone won or lost, right? Like a lot of YouTube channels and Twitter feeds and Facebook, they're not really allowed to make any proclamations about who might have won. So that's going to be interesting how that plays out, because of course the deep state is going to be allowed to say whatever they want to say on their platforms, and they will. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. And of course, there's the rumor and speculation, and Trump is outright saying that immediately after the election, like the night of, probably once everybody is kind of finished their voting, closed their polls, he and his lawyers are going to basically say, all right, we're pushing in all the paperwork. And they're going to start going after the legal side of this. So he's going to waste no time getting that ball rolling. And some say he's going to claim victory the night of the election, unless everything looks completely crazy. But from the way a lot of things are playing out, the way a lot of the numbers are looking, there's a strong chance there's going to be a huge red wave that people will keep talking about. Now, one of the key differences I really wanted to focus on with this video is kind of the way that there is sort of this doom and gloom appearance on the left, right? Like Trump's trying to get us to figure out a way to live with the COVID, if you will. The cure can't be worse than the disease itself. Trying to get people back in school, the students certainly, which allows parents to finally go back to work. And it allows us to get the economy moving. Now, yes, there is a COVID virus. People do get it, but overwhelmingly, 99%, with the exception of the highest age group, 99% of people are fine once they get it. And the people that tend to have worse symptoms or worse problems tend to already have complications within their lives, within their health. So again, if you're reasonably healthy even, a friend of mine has a pacemaker and he got through it with no meds. I'm not saying everybody's like that, but again, he was 69 years old and has a pacemaker. That's like you would think. He thought it was a death sentence, and it's not. Doom and gloom has a whole different view, and that's coming from like the Biden camp, essentially. That's going to be a dark winter. It's hundreds of thousands more people are going to die if Trump keeps doing what he wants to do. And of course, Biden wants to continue with more lockdowns. Lockdowns, much like in Europe, are not very popular here either. We've got rioting in Spain, France, England. A lot of people are upset with further lockdowns, and they are not taking it quite like a lot of these socialist countries believe they should. Now, this is a really good article. I want to read some of it, and it really ties into exactly what I'm talking about right now. And the way it starts is misleading intentionally, and it's kind of cool. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. So the candidate painted America a dark country. He also told Americans that they suffered from malaise, a disease of the soul, and he would be the leader that would restore the soul of America. A gloomy candidate. Another candidate offered optimism. He promised to make America great again. Instead of asking his fellow countrymen to trust their government, he challenged them to trust their own values, the American spirit. He ran on a platform to create jobs, preserve individual liberty, reduce government regulations, and build a strong military. He was committed to the protection and enforcement of the civil rights of Black Americans and proposed to develop enterprise zones to help with urban renewal. He ran a campaign of upbeat optimism, a MAGA candidate. Yet, despite his optimism, he was lagging in the polls. You are forgiven if you think the gloomy candidate is Joe Biden and the MAGA is Donald Trump. You were not entirely wrong, however, but it was the 1980 election where the gloomy Jimmy Carter, the Democrat candidate, faced the optimistic Ronald Reagan, the Republican. And just like Carter 4 decades ago, Joe Biden is currently campaigning as a healer of America's soul malaise. In the spirit of Reaganism, Donald Trump is campaigning to make and keep America great again. 4 decades ago, Carter looked at this country and found a problem. In reality, he was the problem. Biden looks at America and finds a problem: systematic racism. It turns out he committed it himself. When interviewed by a black reporter, Biden said, "You ain't black if you vote for Trump." Now, Trump hasn't spoken like that yet. But for some reason, when the candidate on the left, the candidate that talks about the 1619 Project and how there's this institutional racism, well, from that candidate's point of view, there is institutional racism. And it seems he's kind of a part of it, at least so you would think from some of his interviews that he's done throughout the day. So today, many Americans are also held hostage by COVID. The China virus. The economy is also held hostage by the virus. People lose jobs. Suicide, depression, and addiction to alcohol and drugs are rising at levels no one has ever seen before. But it is the reaction to the coronavirus-induced hostage that separates the two candidates, reminiscent of the reactions of Carter and Reagan in 1980 to the Iran hostage crisis. Now, of course, back in those days, the hostage crisis was out of control. We had a number of people that were stuck over there. Carter sent a Operation Eagle Claw or something like that to try to get them back. Everybody died on that mission. Like, it was a horrific failure. And Reagan was able to, through maybe the Iran-Contra, which there's a whole thing around that, but was able to get these hostages released prior to the election happening. But again, despite lagging in polls days leading into the election, with his optimism, Reagan defeated the gloomy Carter by a huge margin. 51% to 41% in the popular vote, and in a landslide of 489 electoral votes to the 49 of Carter. So in the final days of the campaign, the undecided voters broke strongly for the MAGA candidate. And folks, that's where we are today. There may be a lot of people that dislike Trump because of his personality, that dislike Trump because of his sort of gruff demeanor, that maybe dislike Trump just because he's not the standard politician. Now, honestly, there's many of us that love that about him. Maybe not the gruffness always, but certainly the fact that he's not a politician and he seems to be one of the people that's truly trying to make a difference in this country. He keeps talking about a better tomorrow. He keeps talking about a better economy. He keeps talking about bringing jobs back and getting economies going again. Lowering drug prices, making just medicine better in general, trying to redo Obamacare to something that's actually better. Now, everyone on the left is doom and gloom, so he's just going to take away your health care. You're not going to be able to keep your doctor, which, by the way, the Obama plan didn't allow either. They said you'd be able to keep your doctors. In fact, there was like 20 times where President Obama came out and said, you'll be able to keep your doctors. He said that over and over and over and over, yet you weren't able to keep your doctors. So we've got this side that'll tell you whatever they think you want to hear, and ultimately are going to do whatever they're going to do. For once in my life that I can think of, Donald Trump's actually said he was going to do a bunch of stuff, and lo and behold, he's actually done most, if not all, of that stuff. And on top of that, he's managed to put in a whole bunch of court members, right? Judges all over the place, over 300, I think. And then on top of that, the 3 Supreme Court judges. He has made a huge difference in our country. So a lot of people are seeing this, a lot of people are realizing this, and a lot of people are looking at this from the lockdown standpoint and going, I can't do this anymore. I just can't. I'm not seeing people just falling dead everywhere they go, so it doesn't seem like it's extreme enough to warrant the level of lockdown that the world is currently doing. And there seems to be a lot of health professionals that are on opposing sides as well. It is strange how everything is polar now. I'm not going to say everything's politicized. It is, but it's polar. It's not even the politicization, can't say the word, but it's the fact that no matter what you say, I've got to say the opposite. The opposite. Even if what you said's a good idea, I still got to say the opposite because it's so polar. Bernie Sanders, kind of talking about something that's really polar and weird, and again, is somewhat contradictory to people on the left. But Bernie Sanders admits Democrats are the party of coastal elites, and they are. I'd like to think it is fair to say that in many ways the Democratic Party has become the party of the coastal elites. Folks who have a lot of money, upper middle class, people who are good people, who believe in social justice in many respects. But I think for many, many years, the Democratic Party has not paid the kind of attention to working class needs that they should have, Sanders continued. And that has a lot to do with who funds campaigns, etc. So right now it seems that the tech giants, the people that own your Twitters, your Facebooks, your YouTubes, and everything else under the sun, they're the ones that donate heavily to the Democrat Party. And so thusly, they get a lot of the attention. And because of that, they've sort of let go of a lot of the working class. They've kind of left that in the hands of the unions. And frankly, my girlfriend works for a union organization, and just don't even get me started on that. But from that, she's not even necessarily happy. She's constantly calling out the contradictions that exist where they say they're there for her, but they don't really do anything for you when you actually need it. Now, Glenn Greenwald, I think, said it really, really well. He's got a couple little quotes in here. We'll just read them in order. This has been a huge propaganda coup for security state agencies and their lifelong loyalists. They are no longer seen even on the left as they are. Their greatest threats to democratic liberal values and the greatest source of disinformation, but are rather now beloved, which is weird, right? They used to be the enemies of the state. They used to essentially be viewed as like Republicans, the rich, which is what a lot of the left and the socialists want, is to go after the rich and wealthy. Well, the upper middle class, I'm like on the barely lower end of the middle class or the upper poor. Either way, it is really hard to kind of push up into that genre of money. So Glenn continues, if Biden wins, that's going to be the power structure. And that's true. It's going to be a Democratic Party fully united with neocons, Bush-Cheney operatives, CIA, FBI, NSA, Wall Street, and Silicon Valley, presenting itself as the only protection against fascism, and much of the left will continue marching behind it. Except to a degree, it's fascism, just not against a nation state. It's fascism for these neocons, Bush-Cheney operatives, FBI, FI, right? Like, that's fascism. Just from the definition of fascism, it's got to be a nation state. All right, well, remove the nation state and create this ideology, create this socialist structure, create this social justice structure, and then make that your platform, make that your love, make that your, I'm going to make a flag and t-shirts around that. That's the same thing as what fascism is, except just towards a different direction. No difference. Now, you can call it a different name because it probably should have its own name, but it's the same thing. And that's what we get more of if we vote in Biden. Everybody's afraid that the violence won't stop if we don't vote in Biden. He's going to stop the violence. Otherwise, people are going to continue to riot. I assure you, people might and probably will when Trump wins. There's going to be this point where they're going to be upset. I think National Guard and whatnot will get involved, calm things down, and eventually we can start building this country towards a better world, a better country, which will, in fact, support all these people that currently hate Trump. What he's trying to do is trying to help the people that are downtrodden, the people that are making minimum wage. Now, should we raise that across the nation? No. State to state to state is very different. Tennessee cannot afford a $15 an hour minimum wage, while New York, California can. So you can't raise, it would destroy businesses. And to say, well, we'll just pass it along to the customer. Well, when a customer is used to paying $2 for a sandwich, because they are surprisingly cheaper there, and they're like $8 here. But when you are used to paying $2 a sandwich, and that's the money you make, now all of a sudden that sandwich is $5, you don't want to buy it. Just in your head, there's a sticker shock. It's the same sandwich. How is it more than 2 times the price? So this sort of problem is going to be pushed by the left. Trump is coming at it from a different, more positive, more optimistic outlook, and is doing, I think, a much better job at bringing us in that direction. Now, of course, Philadelphia, they had this issue with the gentleman that was, I guess, had some problems upstairs. I don't know how to say that in a nicer way, right? But he had a knife and came at officers with the knife. Now, in my opinion, a little bit of the video I did see, and I haven't gone and looked into this all over the place, but I feel like they maybe could have tried to do something a little less violent. But that being said, I get it. Someone's coming at you with a force that will kill you and could very well hurt you very badly. Sometimes that's your only option left. So a lot of people are upset, of course. And the party of chaos, as they call them, the Dem Philly police leader who took a knee with BLM is now ordering officers to stand down. I'm going to play this without volume because, first off, the guy that's recording this is just way too happy that this is occurring, which bothers me just on so many levels. Just the mentality of people that are really pushing for criminal behavior. It's just weird because, like, even if you don't live in this city, you're wishing all sorts of bad things for people that do. And for me, that's just like, that's not cool. That's just not nice, right? Like, I'm all about trying to help people. I may get frustrated with people, and I may joke that I hate people, but for the most part, I try to help people as much as I can, and I would never go into someone's city and try to catch it on fire. But that being said, we've got this issue where literally the police are having stuff thrown at them, and then they start to retreat. This is the police in Philadelphia have been told to stand down. Now, they don't really look like they're dressed for riots, first off. They look like they're all wearing their blue shirts and stuff, but anyway, they got riot shields and helmets at least. But they just don't look like they're prepared for this, so maybe that was never the intention. But yeah, literally had people chase them back. So one of the things that came out from this Steve Keeley guy, breaking. Obtained by Fox 29 News. Directive from Philly Police Executive Team. Extremely frustrated officers, both patrolmen and commanders, told me overnight they were ordered to not arrest looters, just disperse them. Car 2 is Deputy Police Commissioner Melvin Singleton. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. Yesterday, when the police announced that the number of arrested in the Monday-Tuesday looting charges were for burglary, and in the directive, the police point that out no calls for burglary will be responded to by the department and officers. Think that leaves no deterrent to stop looting. So this is what, good Lord, they are super sensitive to clicking on that, aren't they? That's fantastic. This is what they're pushing, and this is why so many people are looking at this from the outside and going, this isn't okay for my city. This isn't okay that these very heavily left-leaning mayors and governors are allowing this kind of stuff. Now they're saying we're not even going to go after you for looting, which means any store owner is going to lose their windows and any merchandise that might exist inside that store. Anything on ground level anyway. And we've found that oftentimes fires accompany a lot of this looting as well. So this is the world that our pessimist is trying to give to you. And this is a world that Donald Trump has spoken out in many cases against. Not only that, but on like 15 cases, they've asked him repeatedly to denounce white supremacy and all these kinds of things too. And he has, like 15 times. There's all sorts of different places where that's at. Violence is never okay. Never. By anybody. Violence is not okay. Peaceful protesting is, violent protest is not. In any of these places where violence is not only not being stopped, but in some cases is almost being invited, by saying that by publicly stating I'm not going to go after anybody for looting, there is no bigger green light to looting that you could perceive. I can't think of one. You're basically saying, I'm not going to come after you if you do this. That's carte blanche. So to continue in similar vein, and this, I think, is also helping, maybe not as much as the riots and all that kind of stuff, because that's really just in people's face. There's no way to be like, they're burning down cities. Hello. This Flynn stuff is not talked about much. But Judge Sullivan is being asked to disqualify himself from the case for a lot of great reasons. So first, Sullivan's displayed an inappropriate and an unwarranted rancor towards Flynn's counsel, Powell, particularly during the September 29th hearing. Second, a number of Sullivan's actions and statements evince an apparent intent to see that Flynn is punished somehow, even if he must dismiss the case. The statute governing recusal of federal judges, found in 28 U.S.C. 455, and the canons of judicial ethics require that a judge disqualify himself from further participation in a case if his, quote, impartiality might reasonably be questioned, end quote. Judges are to recuse themselves when they have actual bias against a party or the appearance of such bias. Now, again, if you've had a case and say through evidence and whatnot, the judge finds that they're disliking this guy more and more because he's just a horrible person, that's considered okay. But when Someone's dropped the case completely, the prosecution, and the judge is still angry with the individual because he thinks they're guilty, and he still continues to push the case. That is so far beyond what's okay, and that is way outside the canon of judicial ethics. Now, a lot of people suspect, and I agree, that this guy's Sullivan's toast. And he knowingly was. I think Sullivan knew he's going to be retiring after this whole fiasco is done because his career is ruined. There's no way he will be allowed to sit on a bench anywhere and will likely be disbarred, would be my guess, because of the way he has handled himself on this. But again, the evidence is being brought forward. This is one of those things that as our optimist gets voted back into office, or gets reelected essentially, this will go away. A lot of things are going to go away post this election, or at least post once we finally acknowledge who wins. Now, speaking of acknowledging, Scarborough, never really going to disappoint, and shoot, why would he? But here's some discussions about what they plan on doing to keep Trump from being able to come out and say that he won the election before they believe enough votes have been counted.
It's going to be a wild night, and Donald Trump has already signaled that. He said, effectively, we're going to flood the zone with our lawyers. We're going to send them into Pennsylvania and Michigan and Wisconsin, and we are going to dispute this election. No matter what happens, he's already saying that. Meanwhile, there's some reports that say he could go out and declare victory as early as he can on Tuesday night. Of course, he will not have won, but he's going to go out and try to say it anyway.
We can assure you we're going to be doing coverage on Peacock, and we can assure you if Donald Trump goes out and declares victory, we will be there to say, don't take the feed.
Right.
It's not gonna happen. We're not going to be part of any disinformation campaign by anybody. We'll be doing coverage from 6 p.m. until midnight or until this thing's over.
Wow, which means they could be on the air for weeks, right? I hope that'd be so awesome where they're just like days of no sleep and they just look like they're zombies because of it. But that being said, yeah, they're going to stop him. They're going to put a stop to that. And so again, this is what we're up against. Now, I mean, in all reality, the people that are going to be watching MSNBC and CNN are never Trumpers anyway, are people that absolutely despise and hate this man. Like, Trump derangement syndrome is a very real thing. And surprising thing, too. It's the first time in my life I've ever seen someone that is so absolutely hated by just a swath of the population that it makes them irrational, makes them unable to look at things from any perspective. Like, anything Trump does is bad, when the reality of it, like the peace in the Middle East, 3 different peace deals he's done, plus there's some more in the works. He's managed to lower taxes for a lot of Americans, supposedly lowering some drug prices. I'm not sure which ones or all of them or how effective that is yet. He's managed to do a number of things to help the economy, lowest unemployment ever, highest working by blacks, by Latinos, by any number of the minority groups. Trump has done more for this country in less than 4 years than any politician I can think of ever in their 8-year terms. And certainly more than any politician's group, meaning Republicans. Republicans over the last, 40 years haven't done crap, really. What about Democrats over the last 40 years? Other than whittling away our rights piece by piece by piece, which the Republicans have done as well. 9/11, George Bush. Come on, that was a really heavy start of it. But again, this is just craziness that's happening today. Now, one thing that's a little on the side that gave me great hope, that made me realize I think other people also know who's going to win this election. Again, our polls that we're told here in the United States, I doubt are even close to accurate. And I'm assuming that governments have their own real polls that they're looking at. And geez, look at this. China is poised to ban Australian lobster, copper, and sugar amid spiraling trade dispute. Now, that might seem like, so who cares? Let me put a little perspective around it. So, Philippines, Korea, South Korea at least, India, Australia have formed this cool little posse that's basically against China. This has happened largely because of the movement. A lot of people say what happens in the United States is what's going to happen to the rest of the world. They are still putting up their dukes against China, which means they're not expecting the Chinese form of our government, which is probably the Democrats, tend to be more on the open with China, let China come in, are getting money from China. Supposedly Hunter Biden has been enriched by China. A lot of things have come from China, and they don't really talk about it. It's always Russia, Russia, Russia. When in reality, Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, like there's a lot of countries that are totally messing with us. Totally. All the time. All the time. And to think they're not is silly. And to get mad at one of them more than the other is also silly. And to kind of keep it in perspective, we've messed with all these countries too. We are definitely not free of sin. That whole those who live in glass houses thing, yeah, that's us too. Now, again, are we the good guys and they're the bad guys? Okay, sure, we like to tell ourselves that. That's fine. But the reality of the world is there's governments that are trying to hack our stuff. We're trying to hack other people's stuff. It's just the way the world spins. That being said, shutting down trade deals are real. That's money. And so this means that China is kind of getting sort of exercised, if you will, from a lot of these groups. It's like China's been kicked out of the sandbox and we're like, you're not allowed to play with us anymore. We're not going to let you. And they've got more countries kind of turning against them right now, which indicates the direction the world's going. Remember, all the power was supposed to switch to China. All of it. And it's not now. It can't now. And that's why all these other countries are finally saying, no, we're not going to do it anymore. So this is, again, one of the key signs that this whole motion, this whole movement that we're a part of right now is legit, is real, and is truly making a difference. I know a lot of us don't see it yet. There's evidence. There's little bits and pieces all around us. The panic they're having, the fact that even though Biden wanted to put a lid on his campaign, he's still out in these places that they thought they had in the bag. And they're having to campaign last day because they thought they had it in the bag. This red surge is legit. Make sure if you have not voted, if you're not voting today, in person at least hopefully, then make sure for sure tomorrow on the day of the vote, make sure you get out there. Make sure you cast that vote. This is likely and probably, almost assuredly, the most important election that we will have in our entire lives. 2020 will forever be remembered for a whole lot of things, but most importantly, it will be the year the world turned the corner. It will be the year the world changed, and we're a part of that. We're a part of this historic journey together. And this has been a tough journey for a lot of us, but we're in the final phases of the tough part. And I think things are going to start to look up once we get through this little bit of tumultuousness that we're going, this little bit of undertow. It's kind of, I don't know, it feels like, I don't know if you've ever body surfed. It's maybe a bad analogy, but if you do a body surf and then the wave crashes around you, it kind of roughs you up. You get into this like circular part. And a lot of the times, if you just kind of let yourself go through it, eventually it'll let you go and pop you out. Rather than panicking and trying to fight it every way, you kind of just go with what's happening. And in the end, it pops you back out. You can breathe again. You can get your head out of the water, and life is good, and you swim back out, catch another wave. And that is what we're going through right now. We're in that little bit of twist and turn and that churn as things get a little crazy, but it will spit us out. It's going to spit us out into a better place, and we will then be able to swim back out and start surfing again. Now, it's such a West Coast analogy, but it does work. I hope you guys see what's happening through the world. Thank you for all your support. Thank you for all of you that have PayPal'd me in support. You guys have just been amazing. Appreciate this whole entire movement. This is some of the best people that I've had the pleasure of working with and even for to a large extent. So I appreciate you guys. Love you guys. Thank you for the support. Try to maybe get a second video done later today. I took 2 days off from my normal work, so I'm looking for things to do to fill my time, entertain myself, hopefully entertain you. Love you guys. Where we go one, we go all. It's on the Fringe with Dan RadioStyle.